What an honor it is to be here. I told Ben, I feel you're all my people. There's so many people in this room that can say I've represented Gaby, not just through the Trail of Dreams, but also through my entire journey, from being undocumented to being detained by ICE in 2006 to being naturalized as a US citizen in 2023. And let me tell you something that I've said out loud with a little bit of hesitation, because I worked, and excuse my French, so hard to become a citizen. But today, if it means losing my citizenship because Stephen Miller wants to denaturalize me for doing the work that I do, come get me. I want to tell you a little bit about a story that probably is too familiar to you, that you get to hear a lot from your clients. I came to the United States as an 8-year-old from Guayaquil, Ecuador. And my family, it's a complicated reason why they came, but it was safety, it was opportunity, and it was also something that reading a friend's book, R.T. Shahani, she talks about the infighting that was happening within her family. And that happened in my family too. My mom was fighting with her sister, and my parents had an apartment in Miami that they had bought as just another business opportunity. And my mom, being upset with her sister over a fight and her sister asking for money, gave her our home. And I remember just being 7, 8 years old, not really quite understanding what was happening. But it just shows how complicated the lives of immigrants are. And that it's not this just simple story of, yes, people are fleeing violence, people are fleeing, they want to come here for their children, for their safety. But the story of immigrants is just so much more complicated, but it's also so much more human. And I remember how upset I was that my dad gave away my bicycle, and knowing that I only had so much space and room in a luggage to take the things that I valued the most. I really wish I could have been able to put in my grandfather. That is the person that when I got to the United States, I missed the most. And when I came to the US, I didn't quite understand that I was moving from Guayaquil, Ecuador to the United States of America. In fact, you don't really see these. Well, actually, some attorneys love to have these, but the globe, right, in their office. And in classrooms, they used to have these. And when you turn the globe, you see the line called the equator. And so I, as a little girl, thought Ecuador was the whole entire world. It wasn't until I saw the map a couple of, I can't remember how long until we were in the United States, then I'm like, oh no, Ecuador's a really tiny country in South America. I've moved really far away. And for those of you that speak Spanish and remember watching Sábado Gigante, there was a jingle that the host, Don Francisco, used to sing, and I still remember it. And it was a call collect, where you can call your family for free. Free for us, not free for them. How does an 8-year-old understand that? But I would go to every payphone that I can find once I realized how far I was from home and how far I was from my grandfather. And I would go to the payphone and press 1-800-226-2727. He was really good at jingles. About a month later, my mom sits me down, really upset, asking me why was I doing that, because my grandfather called and said, the bill has come and I need you to help me pay for it. That was the reality in my time as an 8-year-old who had migrated, but loved school and didn't feel any different. I grew up in Miami, where my next door neighbors were African American. My front neighbor Nicaraguan, on top of them was a Palestinian woman, behind us Cubans, and right across the other side, Puerto Ricans. People spoke Spanish, it was a working community, and I did not feel any different. And it wasn't until the 8th grade when my sister came home crying, very upset with my mom, telling her it is your fault that I cannot go to college. She had gone to the local community college. She wanted to be a nurse, something that then and even now are in critical workforce needs. And she said they told her she didn't have the right kind of papers to go to school. I didn't understand what that meant, but it just gave me a sense of terrifying fear that the one thing I wanted to do, which was to go to school, to go to the university, that had been ingrained in my mind since I was a little girl as an elementary school student, I was not going to be able to accomplish. So I did, there's two types of dreamers. The dreamer that gets up and says, okay, if that's my reality, I'm just going to go to work, I'm going to lay low. And then there's the other dreamer that says, I need to excel. I need to be the top of the top, the best of the best, because I need to prove myself to this country, to this nation, to the universities, to the system, that I'm worthy. And so I took that route, and man, 12th grade year, the yearbook staff said, Gaby, I cannot believe you're more pictures than we are in this yearbook, and we're in the yearbook staff. I was in ROTC, I was in the orchestra, I was taking AP courses. I lived and breathed school because I wanted to belong, because I wanted them to see that my character was a good character and that I was a good American. And it came to the time of going to college, and I too was turned away. But unlike my sister, I fought. And I fought until I finally got in. For those of you who are immigration attorneys, I'm going to give you my way. I never usually tell this story because people don't quite understand it. But my parents got us international student visas. We had duration status. From 5th grade to 6th grade, they thought duration status, as long as you're going to school, you're okay. But when I switched schools, what happened to my duration status? Gone, right? So I lost my visa going from 5th grade to 6th grade. My family didn't know that, but I remembered the woman who processed our international student visa. It was like a flash. Her name, I found her. It was the last year before her retirement, and I was able to renew my international student visa. We sent a big packet with all my certificates and everything I had accomplished to be able to ask the officer to please allow me to renew my visa. And they did. And so I started school as an international student every semester, not knowing where we were going to find the money to be able to pay, but having, again, the hope and the faith that if I worked hard enough, that this government was going to be able to see my value. And so I ran for student government president and then president of the presidents. And they started paying for my school, and I started getting scholarships and grants. And then in 2006, I was out in the marches on May 1st, speaking out. I remember seeing the hundreds of thousands of people in Miami. I had become an activist. I had become one of the subject experts on the DREAM Act, being flown all over the country, and people asking me, are you sure you want to say your name? Are you sure you want to use your face? And I said yes, because I believe in this country, because I believe in my First Amendment rights. But on July 26, 2006, at 6 in the morning, ICE came to my door, looking for me, but finding my family. And they detained my parents and my sisters, and I asserted my rights, and they had to let me go because I had an international student visa and there was no warrant for my arrest. But my parents and my sisters, being undocumented, were taken in. And I remember the college president of Miami-Dade College saying, I have called the best of the best immigration attorney. I'm just waiting for him to call me back, but do not go in there. And my dad on the other line was saying, these are good people, Gaby. They just want to help. They're just doing their job. Come here. They're telling us that you need to come here so that nothing will happen to us. Of course, I listened to my father and I went in. And what started was a back and forth with ICE officers who were not only trying to take my visa away, but they were trying to silence me. And the way that I was able to get out of there was by putting my 2 fingers behind my back and promising them that I was not going to talk to the media anymore. Shortly, a couple of hours later, they released my family, my parents and my sisters. And we went straight to our attorney's office, to Ira Kurzman's office. Where we went back and forth, and he couldn't believe what had just transcribed. He kept saying, this is selective prosecution, this is selective prosecution. He had every single one of my families write down exactly what happened. And I'm not going to get too much into the story. You can go talk to Ira. He loves talking about this. But I realized then that people like you were the ones that I needed to be around more, because you are the protectors. You are the light of our community. Laws are made to protect people. They're not made to hurt people. I remember calling a dreamer who had her deportation stopped the year before mine. And I asked her, Marie, how did you get to stay in the country? And Marie said 2 things: community support and deferred action. Deferred action became my Windex, for those of you that have watched my Big Fat Greek Wedding. Every time that there was somebody in detention or something was happening, I would say, deferred action, deferred action, deferred action. And that moment when we were there with my family, I said to Ira and to the attorneys there, John Pratt, not sure if you're here, I said, what about deferred action? And there were some puzzled faces. And Ira Kurzman said, go to page 256 of my law source book. That's where you'll see deferred action. I have that book. I asked Ira that day if I can take it. He signed it, and I spent the summer reading it to try to understand our crazy immigration laws. It's been almost 20 years since that happened. In 2010, I took a leap of faith at the risk of being detained, lost my student visa, my protection, my ability to work 20 hours on campus and have something that a lot of people take for granted, a driver's license. I was the bus driver for all the other dreamers who didn't have driver's licenses and needed to go from point A to point B. But I gave that up, that privilege, because I knew that what we needed to fight for was bigger than me, was bigger than my family. And so we set out to find good people of America, ignorant, uneducated, and lied to people of America who I knew that if they heard from us, if we explained it to them, if we educated them, they would be on our side. And it took 2 years, but we eventually, after the Trail of Dreams, were able to get DACA. And when the announcement was made, I made the decision that there was nowhere else we wanted to be on June 15th, 2012, watching as the president announced something that we as a collective had won, but at AILA. I chose for us to be in community. While you all were in Nashville, we were at the AILA headquarters celebrating what we had been able to win. I was recently at the University of San Francisco with attorneys and judges and law students, and I got to hear one of the attorney and professors, Francisco Ugarte, say, they will gaslight you. And they're doing a lot more than gaslighting us. They're intimidating, they're putting fear, they're putting attorneys through God knows how many different things. They're trying to find that one misstep to try to dismantle and justify their cruel and unconstitutional ways. But here's what I need you to know. They will try to divide us. They will say, you are just an immigration lawyer, stick to that. When you are trying to do something for your client who is a mother and has a child, and you're trying to figure out how to ensure that that child is safe. They will try to isolate you, to make you believe that you're alone. And we've heard this, right, saying you're not alone. But that weight of the battle that you're carrying every single day as you are representing and you are protecting your clients is your weight that you are carrying. But I must say and repeat what a lot of other people have been saying, you're not alone. Look around this room. Look at all the beautiful people here. Many of them that when I first met had no gray hairs, but you're still very beautiful. They will try to intimidate us. We're seeing senators being manhandled, handcuffed. We're seeing judges being arrested. They protect their identity with masks, plain clothes, trying to intimidate us. They don't even know the rule of law. They don't understand what they're doing. But this is what we need to do. We need to speak up. We need to use our voice. We need to write and advocate. We need to fight for those laws that reflect the values we hold dear. When they gaslight you, when they tell you you're wrong, you must respond. I see through the lies. I will not back down. We need you to bear witness. We need to be present. We need to document the injustices. We need to speak the truth to power to others. How many of you, and I really want you to raise your hand, okay, and I want you to be honest. How many of you know in your life people that voted for Donald Trump? I too feel betrayed by that. But those are the people that you can get to, that I can get to. Those are the type of people that need to be listening to you. And so if it's, again, Ira Kurzban, who follows Ira Kurzban on TikTok? If Ira Kurzban can be on TikTok, all of you can be on TikTok. We need to be putting our voice out there. We need to be calling it out, explaining to folks. I have heard people say, I'm tired of educating ignorant people. That is not my job. But if they don't learn from us, who are they going to learn from? And we need to protect each other. We need to build sanctuaries. We need to create the spaces where people can feel safe, loved, and protected. We need to be the shield between the vulnerable and the oppressor. And together, we can make communities unbreakable. I want to close by saying that we have a QR code up here. We have now 12,000 students. Today, right now, in Aurora Detention Center, one of our scholars, Caroline, is waiting to be released. Her bond was posted yesterday at 10 in the morning, just as I was here in this conference. She was driving from Utah to Colorado. A police officer stopped her for driving too close to a semi-truck. And in the 20-minute conversation, which you can watch, he starts asking her all these questions and saying, you have an accent. This is somebody who came to the United States when she was 7 years old. And kept probing and asking until he asked her, where are you from? Where were you born? She unfortunately did not stay silent and said Brazil. And after him posting whatever information on a Signal chat, he released her, and a couple of minutes later, an ICE officer stopped her, detained her. This is somebody who has a driver's license, has work authorization, and has a pending asylum case. A 19-year-old in detention 20 minutes from right here. This work is not easy. It's breaking mine. It will test your resolve, but in these moments, I want you to remember why you're here. I want to build a list of the best immigration attorneys across the country. Like Ben said, 40 states we have students at. And so I'm asking you to please, if you want to be on this list, please sign up with the QR code. And if you want to take just one, I believe that we need to pay you for the work that you do because it was really expensive to go to law school. And it's really expensive to keep your firms going. But if any one of you, yes. Yeah, I'm one of those, dreamers that's like, huh? But if you want to, just sign up to take one pro bono case, this is your opportunity to do this. I know we know better, and I know that the mother who crossed a border with her child isn't breaking the law. She's doing what any one of us would do for our children. I know that dreamers who are working 2 jobs to be able to afford their college education aren't criminals. They're a reflection of what is best of this country. And we know that this fight isn't just about policies or politics, it's about people. This room is filled with power. It's filled with courage and conviction to push back against the gaslighting, the lies, and the oppression. We stand on the shoulders of giants, of civil rights leaders, labor organizers, and so many others who refuse to give up. Your families have sacrificed so much. I know that now is our turn. The baton is in our hands. And I know this, that when we work together, we are able to win things the same way that we were able to win DACA 13 years ago. So my last question for you to reflect is, what will you do? I know I'm asking you to do things that go above and beyond what you're already doing, but will you use your voice to speak for the voiceless? Will you stand for justice even when the path is hard? Will you protect our collective humanity? Will you use your hard and expensive degrees, brilliant legal minds, and privilege at this moment in time? The fight ahead will not be easy, but it's going to be so worth it. And I promise you that as long as we stand together, we are going to win. Thank you.